Okay. It's a very good afternoon. Welcome to your favorite station. We're Galaxy Radio and Radio Flora, broadcasting all the way from Germany with DJ Nyams. On the Sunday, we call this show The Vault, where we look at different topics happening in different parts of the world. And today, we're in Zimbabwe. We're looking at the state of Zimbabwe. We want to dwell on a lot of things that are happening in Zimbabwe. And on my panel today, I've got two guests. I've got Stan, the man, and he's based in the US. Stan, the man, good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Yes. Okay. He just said to me I should call him Stan. So I'm going to stick with that. Then I've got also Dr. Mavasa. Dr. Mavasa is based in the UK. Dr. Mavasa, so good afternoon. Welcome to Galaxy Radio and to Radio Flora.
Good afternoon, Yams. Good afternoon, Zimbabwe.
Okay. So to begin our discussion, let's look at things that are happening in Zimbabwe as a present moment. There's an SADC summit coming soon, and it's going to be hosted by Zimbabwe. First and foremost, what does this mean to Zimbabwe hosting this summit? Dr. Mavasa, I'll start with you.
SADC is a regional unity of regional countries where we share both our culture, business, and a number of political sharings. So hosting such an august summit gives a pride to a nation. It is quite very important that we host this, but we must bear in mind that every SADC member is given a chance to host and to take the chairmanship of the organ once in a while. So yes, while it is an expected thing, it is very important because it cements the unity we have with other SADC countries.
Okay. Mr. Stan, what would be your own comments on Zimbabwe hosting the SADC summit?
Well, in the first place, I have written off SADC in as far as resolving the Zimbabwean problem is concerned. SADC is a helpless bystander, a toothless bulldog. It has done absolutely nothing to help fundamental problems that confront Zimbabwe today. Whether they are hosted in Zimbabwe, whether they are hosted in hell, wherever they are hosted, they are of no consequence at all. Zimbabwe has suffered, Zimbabweans have suffered some of the worst human rights abuses one can ever think of.
Okay, so we'll get into the other issues. We just wanted to first look at, but now let's look at this. Zimbabwe hosting this SADC summit. They are constructing the villas. Then my question is saying, after constructing those villas, when these SADC heads of state stay in these villas, what's next about those villas? Isn't this just a waste of taxpayers' money, Dr. Mavasa?
No, it's not. The first thing we must appreciate is we are hosting head of states, and therefore we need to give them a comfortable and a very good place to stay. When they are gone, those villas will be put into good use.
What type of use?
We'll turn some of them into conference centers. We'll turn some of them into bed and breakfast, hotels, lodges. They will be bringing monies back to the government. They are not going to be white elephant. They're going to be used for it. But however, I thought DJ, give me 1 second, DJ Nyams, just to respond.
Before you respond, Dr. Mavasa, wasn't the heads of state staying in presidential suites in hotels like Crown Plaza, like already Sheraton to Crest Oasis and all these other hotels? Wasn't it going to be a better option?
It would have been a better option, but I'm sure you have not realizing that the parliament building where they'll be meeting is no longer in the town. So the hotels will be very far. That will be very expensive to take them to the parliament every day. And that will be very risky to put them on the road for an hour to the parliament building. So the villas are built around the areas they're going to meet,
but
and therefore it becomes convenient.
Dr. Mavas, all these presidents will have police escort. It will never take them an hour. It will take them even less than 15 minutes to get there. And the cost is actually lesser than building villas, because those villas, the cost that is being put there is just too much.
Well, no, we are looking for at tomorrow. We are not looking only for now. That villa will be an income generating project for a long time. But carrying them one day to the summit and back, it does not give us any profit. But there is more profit when this money comes back. And for your information, DJ Nyams, the funds which are used to build the villas are actually coming from SADC itself. It's not public funding. It is the SADC fund.
Okay. Mr. Stan, the issue of villas, building of villas, is it a good decision or is it just a waste of taxpayers' money?
It's a waste of taxpayers' money, and it's the latest in a marathon of corruption that is taking place in Zimbabwe. What's going to happen to those villas? They say they are going to be turned into income-generating programs, but who is going to own them? Who is going to earn that money? And you can come back to me later on, but one thing I can assure you is they are going to be given to the Chivayos in ZANU. They are going to be owned by ZANU. ZANU are going to own those villas, just like they own other assets of the state in Zimbabwe today.
Okay, Dr. Mavas, how would you respond?
I think Stan is confused, or probably hasn't been home for quite a time. Zimbabwe is not presiding over a tremendous corruption. No, Zimbabwe is actually at war with corruption. It's dealing with corruption in a very tremendous ways, and as we can see, we are winning. So I think we can talk about that if you ask that question properly. But let me say in short, Stan, I'm sure I don't know how long you've been in America, but I want you to know that in Zimbabwe, there are no human rights abuses, which you have said in your opening statement. That was unfortunate, wrong, and that's misleading to the people of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
I'm not sure who you are trying to please, but Zimbabwe does not preside over human rights abuses.
We'll get into that. Gentlemen, let's move on. Let's look at the issue of freedom of expression. So we're going to look at this from two contexts. There are Zimbabweans who wanted to protest during the SADC summit. The president has come out clearly and said, those who are going to protest, the law is going to take its course. And two, in Zimbabwe, we've never seen anyone a protest being allowed to happen ever since Mugabe left. No protest has ever taken place in Zimbabwe. Mr. Stan, what's your comment on that in terms of freedom of expression in Zimbabweans?
There is no freedom of expression in Zimbabwe. It does not exist. If you were to ask about freedom of expression in Zimbabwe, my mind goes back to 1922 Italy under the Mussolini fascist regime. That is exactly the same. Zimbabwe today is a carbon copy of 1920s fascist Italy. And if you don't want to go that far, just go to what Kumbira Kangai said in 1980s. I was there when he said it. He said that ZANU, he pronounced what he called democratic centrism, that ZANU was going to allow only one freedom of expression, and that was the first elections in Zimbabwe of 1980s. He said after that there would be no more free and fair elections. He didn't say it exactly in those words, but he said that ZANU was going to be in total control. And that is why today, if you ask me about Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe today is a captured state. All its institutions of the state are captured. It's a glaring lie. I have to say that. For anybody to say that there is freedom of expression, that corruption is being dealt with. Zimbabwe loses $1.5 billion every year through corruption.
Okay. Dr. Mafasa, in terms of freedom of expression, Zimbabweans have not been allowed to protest during the SADC summit. And we haven't seen any protests happening in Zimbabwe ever since President Mnangagwa came through. And even within the media itself. So freedom of expression, how would you comment on that?
Zimbabweans have not been prohibited from demonstrating. They were asked to put their issues forward. They have to follow the laws. The president says if you are found breaking the law, he did not say protesting. You can protest, but follow the law. You are allowed to protest. You have to inform the police. You have to tell them the reason for your protest, and your protest must not turn into violence. Okay. And therefore, if the police decide that or make a decision that your protesting will not be peaceful, they've got a right, a constitutional right, to stop you from protesting, to protect others and protect the country.
Dr. Mafasa, I just need to make a follow-up. Ever since President Mnangagwa came into be president, there is no protest in Zimbabwe that has ever been allowed, not even one. Tell me of a protest that has been allowed in Zimbabwe. Not even if people do the proper things, go and ask for clearance from the police and everything. Not even one protest. And you say people are made to follow the law, but there is no protest that has ever gone through. If there's one, tell me one that has taken place.
Let me answer you this way, Nyams. Zimbabweans have not been stopped from protesting. The absence of protests means that there is nothing to protest against. And therefore, we are quite grateful and we are thankful and we are proud of Zimbabwe that our people are happy. They have nothing to protest about. So they can only protest if there's something to protest about.
No, Dr. Mafasa, you are misleading people. The truth is, there are so many organizations, you understand, from political parties to civic society, who've asked to protest, but people have not been allowed to protest, which is a fact.
No, that's not a fact. And I've explained to you, and I will explain it again. Allow me to explain it clearly. When you request to protest, the police will consider the safety of the people and your own safety. If they discover or if they find out that you will be compromised yourself, or you compromise peace, or you can compromise the safety of others, they will stop the protest. So if the protests are stopped, it's not a stifling of freedom of expression. It is actually protecting you, protecting the service users, and protecting those who are protesting as well. So it is a way of protecting our people, and we are doing it very well, and we are so proud of our police.
Okay. Mr. Stan, how would you respond to what Dr. Mavaza just said?
I disagree 120%. Protests in Zimbabwe have gone through a very difficult time. Police brutality, brutality from the ZANU militia youths. The Constitution allows for peaceful protests as a democratic right. And when you want to protest in Zimbabwe, you only need to inform the police. You don't ask for permission from the police. Police are not by constitution, by the Constitution, supposed to give permission. They are only supposed to be informed. And the police can arrange if they want to accompany the protesters or to ensure that there is law and order. In Zimbabwe, police have denied. Look at the CCC, for example. Every single protest that they tried to launch was brutally suppressed by riot-armed police. That is the nature of the fascist regime that exists in Zimbabwe. Protests are not allowed, and they are broken, they are brutally suppressed by force.
Okay. Dr. Mavasa, how would you respond to that?
I think, as Stan said himself, and I tend to agree with him that he is actually still covered in the mentality of 1922, as he had said, and therefore he is still a long way to come to what is happening in Zimbabwe now. Zimbabwe is not does not have a ZANU-PF militia youth. We don't have militias in Zimbabwe. Again, Zimbabwe does not have people who oppress other people. Every person in Zimbabwe is very free. But what you must understand is your freedom ends exactly where my freedom starts. Where my freedom begins, that's where your freedom ends. And to balance the ending and the beginning of each other's freedom, that power is vested into the authority of the police. And therefore, the police have a right to tell you to say, you cannot protest because it puts the whole country into danger, or yourself, or people around, or the passerbys, or just people in the street. And therefore, it's very difficult to protect people. And again, answer you clearly again, there's never been a request for a protest in Zimbabwe. What you are talking about, Anyams, was a request for a rally, where they would want to have a rally in a stadium where there was going to be football. And the police would say, no, that cannot happen. But there was never a request for a protest, which was refused.
Dr. Mafasa, just to follow up, I think all of us would understand the difference between a protest and a rally. We've read reports so many times where opposition political parties, civil society have just been stopped, you understand? I remember Jacob Garivumi of Transform Zimbabwe wanted just to do a cleanup campaign to clean the Mbare Msika, you understand? And that in its own was blocked. Then just also follow up, Dr. Mafasa, the same interview that I'm having with you guys today, if I was a journalist handling the same interview, the same topic, at the end of the day, that's why we say the issue of freedom of expression is stifled in Zimbabwe, and which is a fact. So, gentlemen, I'll just give you a minute each just to respond to what I've just said, you understand? And then we move on to the next thing. Dr. Mafasa, I'll start with you.
The interview like this one,
yes,
there are several ones which have been done in Zimbabwe. And actually, I participated in one yesterday, which was run by a different paper in Zimbabwe, and it has not been a problem. And Zimbabwe is since the new dispensation, Zimbabwe had seen a great opening into the freedom space. And therefore, what we are saying, you are talking about Ngarivume wanted to go and clean at Mbare Msika, where the other party was going to clean at the same time. The police simply said nobody should clean because it will cause havoc. You must clean a day when somebody is not cleaning that same area. And it was just a conflict management.
But then at the end of the day, why didn't they then allow them and say, you guys clean today, the next guys clean tomorrow? How come that cleaning never took place?
Because Garivune became lazy and didn't want to go. He was given time to go there, he didn't go.
Okay. Mr. Stan, how would you respond to what I've just alluded to?
Well, I can only repeat what I said. One is that there are many instances where police, and the good thing is we live in the digital era. Everything, people take photographs, people take videos, and you can actually see who the oppressors are, the police deliberately. Now, you cannot say that a peaceful demonstration will cause chaos in society. The people who cause chaos in society are the ZANU-PF militia. Now, we know for a fact, and we have this information that the ZANU-PF headquarters is full of uniforms for police and the army. And sometimes the police don't want to do dirty things that ZANU wants them. So what ZANU will do is they will give police uniforms to their militia units. They are the ones who wreak havoc. We have had many pleas from some of the responsible police officers who said it was not us who did this. These were ZANU militia who were dressed like police officers. You go to the headquarters of ZANU-PF right now and you find the stacks and stacks of police uniforms here. There's absolute no freedom of expression in Zimbabwe.
Okay. Now let's move to the next topic. Let's look at the issue of corruption. Corruption has been a topical issue in Zimbabwe, and this is happening every single day. Yesterday, I was listening to the parliamentary portfolio on transport, and the CEO of Air Zimbabwe said for an aeroplane to have a C check, he was quoting that they need $12 million. For that same aeroplane to do a D check, it was going to cost almost about $40 million. When the parliamentary portfolio then said no, but if you go to airlines.net, The same D check that you're saying will cost 12 million on airlines.net is going for 500,000. And these guys will request 12 million. That's one case. Two, we look at the issue of tenders around Sewik. He gets all the tenders, but all these tenders are never what? Are never done anything. You look at the issue, if you look at Mike Chimombe and the other gentlemen right now who are in remand prison, when I was just doing my own investigation, the thing is they've arrested Mike Chimombe and Mpofu, but these guys were only given money, but these guys tomorrow they'll be set free because the people who approved that tender, who sent deposit the money to them, are not part of this scandal. So, the gentlemen, corruption is rampant in Zimbabwe. How do we fight it? How do we stop it, Dr. Mavasa?
Firstly, corruption in Zimbabwe is actually manifested by lies. To start with, lies by Stan to say they are uniforms of the police in the army headquarters. That's a lie, and it's a shame that you can lie in a public forum like this. Shame on you, Stan. Please don't say things you don't know. But now let's go back to corruption. Yes, we admit there is corruption. In every country, there is corruption. And
let's look at Zimbabwe. We're looking at Zimbabwe. Let's look at Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, corruption is like what I've given an example. Yesterday, I was listening to the Portfolio Committee on Transport. 12 million against a backdrop of 500,000.
The position is 12 million has not been paid. It was a quotation given. And of course, we have got a very clever and a very up-to-date committee portfolio, which raised the issue to say, no, you are too expensive. Can you go to the reality? The reality is 500,000, not 12 million. And we are happy that that has been found out before somebody benefited. Yes, those issues where people have been stealing from the government through tenders, the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission is investigating, and many people are being arrested.
No, but Zach, Dr. Mavasa, Zach to me is just a toothless bulldog. It's just wasting taxpayers' money because Zach is just a catch and release game. You understand? Who has been brought with the SADCC and has gone to prison? Nobody, everybody is just set free.
No, they're not set free. They go to court. Zach does not convict people. Zach arrests and leaves them in court. It's up to the court
but why convict or not. The question will be, why would Zach arrest someone if they don't have they should first gather all the information and evidence before taking the person to the court?
When Zach arrests a person, they will have seen on the face of it that there is a crime which has been committed. And the intricacies and the technicalities of the crime to be proved, it's not Zach's position. It is up to the court and the prosecution. So if Zach arrests a person and that person is acquitted, it does not mean that there was a catch and release. It simply means there was not enough evidence. Because our criminal law in Zimbabwe is that a person is innocent until proven guilty. So therefore, you have to be put into court to be proved either innocent or guilty. So if somebody goes to court, expect two things. Either the person will be guilty or not guilty. If he is not guilty, it is not corruption.
Let's talk with facts. Ever since Zach has been put, which person has been brought by Zach to the courts and has gone to jail? Just give us a number.
Former Minister Undenge, former Minister Kagonye, number of directors in the CMED, public service. There are so many people.
No, Dr. Mavasa. Going to remand prison and being denied bail is not being convicted, because we are looking at how come Zach is just as good a catch and release mentality. Like what
former Minister Kagonye went to prison. Former Minister Undenge went to prison.
No. I'll give you an example, Dr. Mavasa. These guys who get tenders, they bid for the tender, but the people who approve the tenders and pay the tenders, how come they don't get also in prison? Because they are also part of the whole cartel.
Depending, when a person is given a tender, it means it has gone through the tender board. But if it does not perform what has been paid for, it's nothing to do with those who have given him tender. It is his own problem, and he has to be arrested, and he has to be answerable and responsible for what he has not done or he has done. So therefore, you cannot arrest the tender board for giving a tender to a person who had proved that he could do something. And then after that, he doesn't do it, then that person he becomes liable to his actions. So you cannot arrest anybody who was in the tender board for giving tender to a person who is not performed after being given tender. They don't know that he won't perform. They will believe that he's performing.
Okay. Mr. Stan, what's your take on issues of corruption? We've seen these tender issues happening. We've seen catch and release. We've seen a lot of issues around corruption in Zimbabwe. How would you respond to that?
It's part of the tradition of corruption is endemic in Zimbabwe. And the most official statement about corruption in Zimbabwe has come from the Auditor General. I have read all the Auditor General's reports, annual reports. And every single year, she says there is money that cannot be accounted for from this ministry and from that ministry. That report is presented to Parliament. And I've waited to see whether Parliament was going to do anything at all about it. Guess what? Their only resolution was government will absorb that missing money. No one has ever been held to account. Mugabe himself mentioned that 15 billion US dollars could not be accounted for from mining transactions. And there are other well-researched reports whereby billions of US dollars have gone missing. Now, as I said again, under Kangai's democratic centralism, no ZANU-PF top hierarchy apparatchik member of the ruling elite can ever be jailed for corruption. What he talks about, that so-and-so has been jailed, guess what happens? He's jailed today and tomorrow that person is driving his high-classy car wherever they were going. There is a catch and release.
Dr. Mavasa.
That prevails even to this day.
Dr. Mavasa, under a minute, just please respond.
As I've said that Stan is not knowing what he's saying. Zimbabwe does not do catch and release. People are arrested. And when they're arrested, we allow the law to take its course. We don't just put people to prison before they're tried. It's what is called rule of law. A person has to go through the process of trial, a process of full trial and a fair trial. So if they are acquitted, good luck to them. If they are convicted, they go to prison. So do not blame the ZANU-PF for the process of the law.
Mr. Stan, under a minute, just please respond so that we begin to wrap up.
Well, I feel very sorry for my colleague here, because what is happening in Zimbabwe, I think he has lived too long away from the country. Maybe he was living on another planet. But what is happening in Zimbabwe by way of corruption is so plainly, ZANU is now engaging in corruption with impunity. They are now doing it publicly. Some of the things we did not know about ZANU, guess where they came from? The ZANU-PF who were corrupt, they are so proud that they are able to get away with this, that they can now open. Look at what Jivayo does, the way he flaunts his wealth, the way he talks about how he has made money. Here is a convicted criminal, a person who has no business capabilities.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stan. Let's look at President Mnangagwa just announced that after this term, he's stepping down. Dr. Mavasa, very short. Is he really stepping down, or because Zimbabweans are saying, will he really step down, or you didn't step down? What's your take? Do you think President Mnangagwa is going to step down?
I know Zimbabweans want him to stay forever, but he is a constitutionalist. He's a man who believes in the Constitution, and he's actually said the Constitution of ZANU-PF allows him only to be a leader of ZANU-PF for 2 terms, and the Constitution of Zimbabwe again allows him to be the president only for 2 terms, and therefore he cannot extend it beyond 2 terms. He will stick to the Constitution, he will stick to the law, because ZANU-PF abides with the law follows the law. We don't breach the law. So as the president has said and he has spoken, and we believe what he has said.
Okay. Mr. Stan, do you think President Mnangagwa stepped down as he said?
That remains to be seen. I'll give you one very quick example. When during the election time, he was going to address residents at Epworth. And he promised he was going to give 10,000 title deeds. Guess what happens when he got there? He never mentioned that. Nobody got those title deeds, even to this day. He also has made many promises. For example, he said the reason they overthrew Mugabe was they wanted to get rid of the criminals around Mugabe. Do you know where those criminals are today? Do you want to guess?
Okay. We would want to keep guessing and keep thinking where those criminals are. Gentlemen, time is never a friend and time is never enough for us. But what I'm going to do right now, Dr. Mavasa, I'm going to give you 2 minutes of your parting shots on what's your overall assessment of the state of Zimbabwe today as we speak.
Zimbabwe is in better hands than ever before. The president is done. We are now is actually shown that is the champion of development. Our roads are being rehabilitated. The infrastructure is being rehabilitated, and jobs are being created. Poverty is being alleviated and fought, and women gender issues are being addressed, and the rule of law is being followed, and justice is being meted. So Zimbabwe is in better hands, and the democratic space has been opened, and Zimbabwe is far much better than it was before. We only have people who wish it to be worse, people like Stan here. Unfortunately, Zimbabweans will continue to live in a better country like Zimbabwe, and we are proud to be Zimbabweans. It is the only country we can call ours in the whole world.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stan, what would be your parting shots within 2 minutes on the overall state of Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe is clearly under the control of ZANU-PF, all its institutions. And the people of Zimbabwe have been marginalized. And that's why 1/4 of the population of Zimbabwe lives outside of Zimbabwe. There is no hope, there's no future for Zimbabweans. The infrastructure that he talks about is broken down, and I'll tell you why. You go in any direction to a rural area from an urban area in Zimbabwe, and you see for yourself that time is at a standstill in rural areas. Rural areas are today exactly what they used to look like in the 1950s. I was showing some pictures of schools which are completely dilapidated. And yet $1.5 billion is looted every year. That kind of money could make Zimbabwe a very well-developed country. You cannot loot the country and develop the country at the same time. And we now have, thank you very much, a political elite who never cared about the rural people, about the majority of the population. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, time is never enough. We gotta leave you and love you. And this has been the Big Chill, and I've been with Dr. Mavasa, who's based in the UK, and I've been also with Mr. Stan, who's based in America. And we're looking at the state of Zimbabwe, and I think I'll bring the gentleman on once again another platform for another discussion on the state of Zimbabwe and many more things to come. This is the DJ Nyams right here on Radio Floor and Galaxy Radio, like the YouTube channel, Nyams Escapade, Dr. Mavasa and Mr. Stan. Thank you so much for coming onto this platform.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Stan. Thank you, Zimbabwe.